Temos aqui assim um painel de gente. Temos aqui um painel de gente muitíssimo interessante que justificava que a organização do MecanIST fosse de facto cumprimentada e aplaudida se houvesse aqui assim uma fotografia que projetassem da Beatriz Isidro, da organização, de facto, assim, aplaudia e dava-lhes os parabéns. Eu vou apresentar as pessoas que estão neste painel. Está a Luísa Gonçalves, aqui assim, a seguir a mim, da Drive Now, que é uma empresa que pertence neste momento à Brisa, cá em Portugal, e que trata de car sharing. A Luísa fez o Master na Nova e tem imensas aventuras interessantes para contar. Por exemplo, participou em ações intensas de voluntariado em São Tomé e Príncipe, com os Irmãos da Caridade na Índia, enfim, todo um mundo de aventuras. Joana Correia trabalha numa empresa que é Hive, que está a tentar também revolucionar a mobilidade aqui no mundo inteiro. Hive, embora seja uma empresa estrangeira, teve o seu projeto piloto em Lisboa, agora está a expandir-se para Atenas, para Varsóvia, para outros sítios, mas a sua referência, embora seja uma empresa estrangeira, é Lisboa. Depois, a seguir, temos o Afonso Pais de Sousa, que é da MecanIST. Se calhar vocês conheceram-no das notícias nos jornais, quando foi daquilo do Traffic Analytics, que foi muito badalado nas capas dos jornais. Trabalha liderando uma equipa de desenvolvimentos na MecanIST, e, portanto, é um especialista em coisas como conectividades, conduções autónomas, etc. Na ponta do vosso lado esquerdo está o Gonçalo Castelo Branco, da DDP. Ele estudou economia, fez o MBA no INSEAD e está a trabalhar nesta... Ele é o responsável, Head of Smart... I forgot. I should be speaking in English. Excuse me. Okay. He's the Head of Smart Mobility at EDP, the Portuguese utility. So he has a number of projects related with services, not only with selling energy, but providing services. Nowadays, EDP is more interested in selling connectivity and different services than selling electricity, which is a commodity nowadays. So, welcome here. Maybe I would leave the stage to you. Maybe I begin with Luísa, and you are changing the mindset of people, namely in Portugal, about mobility. You think that no longer the issue is owning a car, but having access to mobility services. So right now you are losing money, I think. I'm disclosing the secret, but you are still losing money, but you aim at making profits in the near future. So really you are into a revolution. What do you feel like shaping the future, and what is your perspective about mobility in the near future when you will be making profits?
So first of all, thank you for the invitation to be here today. It's really good for us to speak to an audience like you, because we really want to shape the way you see mobility nowadays. So, Drive Now, it's a company that's working in Lisbon since 2017, and our main goal is not to work as the only mobility facilitator in Lisbon. What we really want is to combine our services with other mobility facilitators, with, I don't know how to say trotinettes in English. E-scooters. E-scooters, with the other car sharing companies. We know that we can't live alone. We can't be a standalone company. We have to share this mindset, and we have to share this way, these new ways of mobility, to educate the customer with other companies. Otherwise, we will not be able to change and to shape the new mobilities way. So yes, now we are losing money, but we expect to, at least for now, our main goal is not to focus on, it's always budget-wise and always, of course, focus on money, but at this moment, our main goal is to make the Lisbon living persons understanding that the importance of change the way we move around the city, because our traffic is insane. The parking system is insane as well. So what we have to do is try to change the way we see mobility. We have sharing economy in everything. So mobility is just another thing to share. So yeah, this is our main goal. I don't know if I answered your question.
Joana is also trying to change the mindset of people, and not only about cars, mobility or e-scooters, but even changing the urbanism of towns. How do you think about?
That was an off-the-record comment. But is this too loud, or is it just me? No. Okay. So thank you for having me. I agree with Luísa. It's really nice to speak to an audience like you, because in 2 or 3 years you'll be working and you already use the city, and you are a big part of the change. This change that she referred to, and that I totally agree. We have to change the way we move around the city because of pollution, because of cities are too car-centered, and we don't seem to, or a lot of people, especially maybe older people who are more, they don't like the disruptive change or the change in mobility. But people don't seem to understand or realize that it's possible to have a city with mobility and infrastructures that don't go around just cars. So imagine the kind of space that we would have if people didn't use cars to move around. If we had better infrastructures on public transportation, if we use e-scooters, bike sharing, Drive Now services, etc. So yes, that's what I was speaking about, and I agree that we cannot do this alone by ourselves. I think more and more people don't seem to need to have or to own a car, and really don't need to move around the city and to do the tasks that they usually do. You can leave your house and use the bike to get to the university, and then if you have a meeting somewhere else, or if you have to go, I don't know, to Carcavelos, Cascais, maybe you can use Drive Now services, and then for coming back you can use a train, and then a scooter to go to the subway, or to use for that last mile that you want to do. So this is the disruption, this is the change, and it's really a pleasure to be part of this and to work in this.
And Joana, why Lisbon? Why did you use Lisbon as the project pilot?
Mhm. First of all, Lisbon has a really good weather, which is fundamental for e-scooters project. We are a very so in cities that rain a lot, or people don't use e-scooters that much. Second, Lisbon has a lot of hills and a lot of obstacles that could really get us, or that could really show us and make us understand what are the real problems, or how do people use e-scooters, and if this really is a solution of mobility or not. And third, because the group where we are, Daimler Group, we have a brand here, My Taxi. My Taxi was really well accepted in Lisbon, so yes.
You stay here.
Yes.
Welcome. Afonso Pais de Sousa is working with the development team at Siemens and tackling issues like ETS, G5, and interconnectivity. And right now is convinced that people want to connect with infrastructure and cars between themselves and provide the dashboard. There's, I think, a fight going on. The car makers, they try to size their dashboard of the car, and all these new projects are taking the dashboard for them. So they are providing interconnectivity, and this is also linked with another topic which is working also as autonomous vehicles. Afonso, what is your perspective about interconnectivity? Why is it so important that people share information with infrastructure and between cars and other?
Exactly. I don't know if it's my microphone that it's making this noise
or mine.
not.
Is it mine? No.
Okay. So just to give you a brief overlook for the future of mobility, I actually see it based on 4 big pillars. One of it's autonomous driving, which I think it's a sexy topic and it's a reality nowadays, and I think we should discuss it. Second, connectivity, which I will address in just a second. Then electrification and also shared mobility. I think these are the 4 pillars that will shape the mobility of the future. And during the last 100 years, nothing really disruptive happened in mobility. We had the car more or less the same as it was 100 years ago. Of course, it's more comfortable, more gadgets, it's a little bit more geeky. But now we are finally facing a disruptive technologies being applied into mobility, which I believe will really change the way we move. So kick scooters is actually one of the parts that are actually shaping the mobility, at least for the first mile, last mile. So regarding the connectivity topic, if we want autonomous vehicles driving in our roads, there is still a long way to go. And how we see it, not only me but also Siemens and what's being shaped also in Europe and in the US, is that we need to prepare our roads to receive these autonomous vehicles. Okay, people are still very skeptical when having autonomous vehicles driving around and making the decisions for us. So we need to give this perspective of safety to the people, and for that we need to prepare our roads. Okay, and preparing our roads means making or creating ways into the infrastructure to communicate to the vehicle and to the vehicles to communicate in between each other. And this is a reality nowadays. So the car-to-car consortium was established in 2008, in 2006. So Siemens joined in 2008. So during the last decade, this is a subject that has been worked not only for the industry and for public and private operators, but also from the automotive industry, so car manufacturers, because all of them need to be aligned. And this means that nowadays we have the possibility of having the cars speaking to each other, okay? It can be safety messages, it can be, for example, if I'm driving my car, suddenly I brake, this message can be sent to the car right behind me and also to a car 100 meters far away. Either because the vehicles communicate with each other or because the message is being sent also to the infrastructure, who then communicates to a car that it's 1 kilometer far away. So this is a reality nowadays. Portugal is not an exception, so the first tests, trials with autonomous vehicles just happened earlier this year. We will also have tests with what we call... It's me? Yeah. What we call cooperative ITS. So this means that we will install equipments in our roads and in our vehicles, test vehicles. I don't know if I should turn this off and use the normal mic. Okay, I'll keep it. So we will perform these tests using what you've mentioned, IGSG5, but also using 5G. Okay, these are two different technologies. So 5G, it's the evolution of 4G, which will be disruptive. So nowadays you might have seen it all over the news with the scandals with Huawei, because Huawei it's actually stepping in and disconnect. I will disconnect.
Sharing is caring.
Exactly. And so these trials will happen in our roads as we speak today. Okay, so there are EU-funded projects. Yeah, so the issue with Huawei is because Huawei is stepping or is betting a lot into 5G technology. Okay, then the scandals with the United States and the data privacy issues, this goes far away this business. But I would say that there are people who defend that 5G should be also applicable for road use cases. Others defend that a broadband such as the ITSG5 should be used, which is a reserved public broadcast that allows us then to communicate and to send messages and exchange messages between infrastructure and the vehicles. So right now what is happening, so no one wants to stay behind, so everyone is testing both technologies, and the market then will play its role, okay? But what we see is that there are critical messages, especially those ones related to safety, okay, that should be managed very carefully, okay? And this typically stands on the public side, so on the public operators of national roads, for example, or even highways, because these are critical messages, and when you are sending a message telling someone that someone breaks his car, this message should be reliable and should be authenticated and verified, okay? And this normally should happen on the public side, okay? So, but this type of situations is right now undergoing. And then this will lead eventually to people accepting autonomous vehicles, okay, which are now reality. So if you go to YouTube and you search for autonomous vehicles, you can find many Teslas driving around with people sleeping behind the wheel. So this is a reality, okay? But making this mass production and replacing all the vehicles for autonomous vehicles, this won't happen from night to day. So there's a path that we need to go carefully. So, and this is being done. But I honestly believe that autonomous driving will change a lot the way we move around, okay? And if you look at more controlled environments such as railways, okay, so it's very easy to find metro completely autonomous and trains, and eventually and gradually we will step in also into cars and private cars, but perhaps first with taxis or with shuttles. So there is a natural path that we need to go.
Gonçalo, I changed the algorithm
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure for EDP and to me personally to be here today. It's true. So mobility, it will be a completely different new paradigm from what we have used to see in the last decades, probably. So everything is changing. Mobility will be connected, as Afonso said, will be shared, will be autonomous, but on the basis of that will also be electric. So EDP is an utility power company that typically utilities are placed in these new business models on the charging infrastructure. So providing charging infrastructure, public charging or private charging infrastructure for new ways of mobility, being scooters, autonomous vehicles, shared vehicles. But actually, I think the challenge for us and how we interpret it, how ADP is seeing that, is this an opportunity to be in new markets? So not just in new geographies, but to be in adjacent markets to the normal business that you would typically apply to a company like EDP or to an utility. So it's true. So the traditional manufacturers, their value, the value they have in the industry, the knowledge they have of the engines and what they built so far, it's being challenged and very seriously. Suddenly an electric car is way more simple to develop. Suddenly it's possible to develop a competitor. Tesla sold more in the US in the last trimester than all the series of BMW. So it's actually happening. And after that, announced that the Model, I'm sorry, it was not Tesla, it was the Model 3 of Tesla alone sold more than almost BMW and Mercedes combined in the US. And then after that, just 2 weeks ago, they announced the new Model 3 at $35,000. That was the aiming, since the beginning they were aiming for that price. So this is very disruptive. And you see that auto industries, auto manufacturers are positioning themselves in this new business. And the new business will be mostly based in services, in shared mobility services, in understanding mobility as a service. So the way we go from A to B, it's going to be different. So probably my kids will not have a driver's license, which is weird for me. It's probably not that weird for you. But in the US, in the last 10 years, 50% of the teenagers that got the age to have a license, they didn't get one because they didn't see the need to have one. So this is actually puzzling for someone already like me, and I'm not that old. But it's a new paradigm. So I think it's very interesting. We see these movements. We see the auto Mercedes, Daimler, and BMW joining together in shared mobility. You see new companies as Google entering autonomous vehicles. You see Amazon is investing in, just 2 weeks ago, Amazon invested in Rivian, which is a electric pickup trucks of the US, and they invested $700 million. Daimler and BMW, they joined forces and committed to invest 1 billion euros to electric mobility and services, which is completely unexpected. Two rivals in the industry partnering, and this was announced already also, I think, 2 weeks ago. Kia and Hyundai are investing in shared mobility. They already invested in Grab in Singapore. They invested in Indian company. This was news of yesterday. So this is just last month news. Okay, so every week this is changing rapidly, and I think there's a big challenge for traditional players, but there's a huge opportunity for new players. And what is interesting, I think, is there's no incumbent position in this new market. So there's no one that is better placed than others to play the game. And no one will do it alone, which is also a particular and interesting thing about this business. Is nor Daimler or Amazon or Google or EDP or Enel or Endesa or whatever player or Tesla can do it alone, because the mobility will be a combination of things. So a client of mobility can be using one kind of service in one day, another completely different, or even the same day for different types of transportation. So integrating this offer to clients is where we are positioning. The business model, I don't think it's there yet. So we are in an exponential growth of EVs, but still on coming from a basis that is still small. But what we see is that in 10 years' time, this will be happening. And 10 years, it's a lot. We cannot extrapolate easily for in a 10 years period. But 10 years ago, the iPhone launched the first one, and an app didn't exist. So we don't have this capacity of understanding how different the world will be 10 years from now. But it's going to be actually completely different. So I think that's what we are doing as EDP, is are we positioning ourselves in this tray and try to partner and enable companies that want to electrify their fleets. So we are working with clients, providing solutions for fleets electrification, not only corporate clients, professional clients, also public transportation, but also charging at home, because in the end, 90% of the charging of an electric vehicle will be done, it will be either at home or the office. So we need to prepare these infrastructures for this new challenge and the EVs overall.
Luísa comes from Viver and the project. And in Luísa, Luísa was used to be on a leader in technology. They have to rebrand Luísa Innovation and rebrand it to A to B, because it was not polite to sell technology to other operators, highways, with brand Luísa. So they have to rebrand Luísa Innovation into A to B. And Via Verde is one of the technologies, and Luísa was in the project of the apps of Via Verde to extend Via Verde to any kind of traffic. So even in public transportation, one could use the base technology of Via Verde. But the shift is that you now turned from technology leaders to joining Drive Now and betting on a change of mindset. So now you are on a cultural revolution. I would ask you, the technological background will make a difference, or this new battle is completely different? You are now in a different business, and technology doesn't matter. It's not your business now.
Actually, in Brisa, we have an internal challenge because, as you were saying, at the moment we are just like the main operator in to the highways, so we had no competitors. So now we are facing a new market with competitors. So internally, we have to be agile enough to be quickly and to respond to every challenge of the market. So what's happening is that we are not counting on the experience that Brisa has, because at least at Drive Now we aim to be like a cellular, a part of the company, just to be agile enough. So that's why, no, we are not counting on the experience of Brisa. We are working a lot with BMW and trying to understand trying to learn with other cities, mainly in Munich and Berlin, what they are doing, what they did, what is their experience, and try to learn from them, not from Brisa, actually, to be honest, which is really good, because regarding your question just now, we are losing money, yes, but one of our main goals is to be the first mobility player in every ways of mobility. That's why I was working in Via Verde in a public transportation app payment, public transportation payment app based, which is just one more ways of mobility that we want to be a part of. But we have also, we are with the big project about connected cars. We are trying to prepare our highways to connected cars and to autonomous cars. So this is a big shift for Brazil. But speaking just about Drive Now, we are trying to be like a bit of a part of this big and old and with a lot of process company, and trying to be more agile and trying to learn with another European cities and not a lot with Brazil experience.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joana, security is an issue for you. There are tips that are taking away your e-scooters. People smashing the e-scooter, or indeed the Portuguese population. Maybe you have already some experience outside of Lisbon, Atenas, and other Poland and other countries. The population is joining you and is carrying your e-scooters, or you have an economic problem with the conservation of your vehicles.
Although we have numbers that show us that more and more people are using our services, it is true that we have a big part of our fleet that is stolen or taken away from the geofencing, or thrown to the river or thrown to lakes, etc. I think this is part of the disruptiveness of this service, because it is new. People are not used to see an e-scooter with no chains or anything so in the streets, and I don't know. I believe this is part of the first month of people responding to it, or maybe they feel that they are not responsibilized, etc. But more and more police is not only doing the regulation of e-scooters, but also it is controlling and trying to prevent these kind of situations from happening. So I believe I answered the question.
May I ask you a difficult question?
Yes. Yes.
Because the image processing inside autonomous vehicles requires a lot of computing power, and we are not speaking about black box to be able to process the information required by an autonomous vehicle. We need a really big computer, and those computers they have an energy consumption which is much bigger than the powertrain of the vehicle. So the computer for an autonomous vehicle can consume as much as 4 times the engine of the normal car, or twice the power of the engine of a very big car at full speed. So you are consuming a lot of energy. My question is this sustainable, or people will give up because energy consumption will increase a lot, and also the cost of traveling, because even if engines are more efficient, if the computers take away the 4 times more energy, so the car is becoming very inefficient. So what do you think about this? Is this challenge important or trivial or whatever?
That is in fact one of the major challenges of autonomous driving. So I've mentioned one, so convincing people that autonomous driving is safe and it's better and it will save lives, which is, I would say, one of the most important messages. And then there is the battle with insurance companies, okay, because who will be held responsible when an accident occurs with an autonomous car? Will be the people sitting behind the wheel who did nothing? Will be the car manufacturer? Who will be the responsible people? And then third, it's that. So it's the rise of the consumption that the car will need internally. And when you cross this with the electrification of the vehicles, then it becomes critical. Okay, so if we have a car that now consumes a lot of power for processing data and also for communication, then you have an issue in terms of engineering of the vehicle, of course. This somehow is also related with what we were discussing in the beginning regarding the connectivity, because there is a trend of moving some of this processing, or at least treating the information on the infrastructure and making it ready to send it to the vehicle. Okay, but it's still too early to say how things will happen, but that's true. So one of the major challenges of autonomous driving is that we are suddenly increasing a lot the power you need inside the vehicle to supply their connectivity modules, and there is a complete PC inside, lots of processing, and this of course demands lots of power. And when you cross this with electrification and with the difficulties around the batteries and batteries manufacturing, but you have to also bear in mind that if you look, I don't know, a few years ago, the costs of batteries is dropping significantly. So like 50% in 5 years at least, I would say, for the price drop of a battery. So and technology is evolving. Batteries occupy less and less space, and I think that all of this combined will make a perfect solution. But there is not yet an answer, okay? The industry is somehow responding to these new challenges. Let's see how it goes. But the fact is that we have good and reliable autonomous vehicles already built, driving around, either from Tesla or from Waymo via Google, or even Uber. So Gonçalo was mentioning, now you have suddenly completely different companies betting on autonomous driving and betting in vehicles and in mobility. So I would say that 5 or 6 years ago, or at least 10 years ago, no one would expect that Google would bet into mobility, or that we would have an Uber company also worth more than 80 billion. So things have changed drastically nowadays. And what you see, which is very curious, and when you look at the younger generations, is that the companies that are right now disrupting the technologies are typically smaller companies, startups, either by their own ways or with investment from larger companies to make them then addressable to global markets. But the ideas are coming from smaller companies, okay, which then typically they have either investment or even big companies behind. And the way people do business has changed a lot in the past decade.
Gonçalo, I would ask you something is puzzling me. EDP, I used to see it as a seller of electricity, but nowadays they contend that they are losing money on selling electricity. They are no longer interested in that, and they are looking at providing services. How is that so? Do you think that the change in our world is so disruptive that instead of selling electricity as it is, you will be dealing with services? What is your business case?
Yep. I wouldn't say that we are not interested in selling electricity anymore, but it's true. So what we call that is the new downstream opportunity. So all the business that's behind the meter. So at home, typically EDP distribution, which is the low voltage grid in Portugal, they leave you a meter at the door of your home, the contador.
Meter is contador.
Yep.
Contador electric.
And that's it. And so, but EDP distribution, they are now including smart grids to know what's happening in the home, And that creates new business opportunities for us, EDP Comercial, which are the retailer. Because what you're saying is true in the way that in the future, the scarce resource is not the power, electricity, is not the electricity, but the capacity. So the grid will have to accommodate a lot, every new EV is like a new home in terms of consumption. So you have to accommodate the grid that you have to integrate these new resources. And that is going to be possible because of new technologies and mainly because of the digital. So you will need to include smart charging. So if everyone gets a home in a building at 7 o'clock, in the end of the day they connect the car, if all of them are connected at the same time, the power of the building it's not sufficient, not even the power of the block or the city. So what you'll have to do is that you will need digital platforms that will manage the power available and that will make a curve, like some of the vehicles will charge then, some others at 1 a.m., some others at 3 a.m. What matters is, let's say, at 7 a.m., 80% of the battery, it's charged for all of them, or whatever you put in your app. But more than mobility, this new downstream opportunity brings other things. So distributed generation, so solar panels typically in residential homes and companies. So EDP is today the _1 seller of solar panels in Portugal. EDP has this service Funciona, which is kind of an insurance for your home that costs you 6-7 euros per month, and you can call EDP to fix some appliance. And we have 1 million clients of Funciona in Iberia. We are selling through Funciona washing machines. So actually this is changing, and mobility adds on this. So with the solar panels, and one day we see mobility and the electric vehicle as the center of this new smart home. So you'll have solar panels, you will have a storage, which is not in the money yet, but will come to that, because as Afonso was saying, the price of storage and batteries is exponentially decreasing. So it gets less than half every year. That's what will make electrical cars cheaper than combustion cars around 2022, 2025. So suddenly you don't need any incentives. So the electric vehicle will be cheaper because the battery is the most expensive component of an EV. So this in 2025 suddenly EVs will be much more available to everyone, and there will be this need to integrate a solar panel, to have a storage. There's one idea of local energy communities where you can manage between the available power of your building and the storage. There's technologies like vehicle to vehicle, so between neighbors they can all agree that if today I still have my car highly charged, I don't mind going to 70% for my neighbor, things like this. So these kind of services are what are appealing also as business cases for an utility as EDP. I think we are well positioned there to match the EV pivotal role with all of these attached business, let's say. But off-grid parity, it's a reality in some parts of the world already. So you are better off with a solar panel and then a storage and your EV and not connected to any utility than paying what costs you the kilowatt hour in utility, which is strange because this means innovation is beating scale. So it's actually cheaper to have a solar panel at your home than a centralized CCGT or power dam, which is again not expected, but that's the reality of the technology. So I think it's understanding all this and how this can be brought together in an integrated way to consumers. It's where we are now developing our efforts.
Thank you, Gonçalo. I would challenge the members of the panel. Would you take questions from the audience? Would it be what questions do you want the panel to answer?
I have one question for you. You were mentioning that 90% of the charging is going to be either by house or in the office. how do you actually address then when you have to travel long distances, or yeah, when you have to travel long distances and there's a huge line just to charge 30 minutes? How does the
Yeah, you're right. So there's the range anxiety that's something related with EVs today. So, but that's actually more and more a myth than a reality, because now EVs, typically standard EVs, so not even Teslas, they already have 300, 350 kilometers of autonomy, and they are reaching 400 kilometers as an average, as a standard for the market, and suddenly you will have 500. So the more this autonomy increases, the less you will need to charge outside your home and office. But the grid is developing. Still, I think today, if you want to drive from Porto to Algarve, you will have to stop half an hour to charge your car and probably wait another half an hour for someone that's there. But I think it's the chicken and egg problem. So the more EVs are coming, the more the grid is expanding. So far, we have 60 fast chargers in Portugal, but all major companies are announcing new investments. We have announced 30 new chargers with BP gas stations. We want to put them around the country. But again, an average in Europe, a normal driver drives less 50 kilometers a day. That's the average distance everyone has. So that means in any normal EV, you don't even have to charge every day. So you just plug it in as your mobile phone. When we're not using it, you put it on your house or on your office, and in like 4 hours, it's charged, even if it's not fast. So there will be, sometimes you will need more than 500 kilometers range, but that will be the 10%. So that's actually, we have an app. So this is not advertising because the app is free, but it's called EVX, and it's a telematic solution. So you're connected, and you can choose any electrical car you would like to test, theoretically. So the different brands are there. And what we'll do is that we'll measure all your activity, and they will say, if you were driving this car, how much your autonomy was today, how much you were charging. And the data we collected from that app, from all the users we have so far, is exactly this. So people on average are driving 40 kilometers a day, which is exactly what we knew from statistics. And they were saving €1 per trip. So comparing if they were driving an EV versus the combustion car that they have. And they are only charging once a week outside home or office when they do long trips, so less than 90% of the time. So we are actually, with real data, exactly finding the same values, which is interesting. So if you want to download the app and test it, it's completely free. It's just interesting because then it says how much CO2 you would be saving driving that EV. It's a theoretical EV. How much you could be saving. It helps you on that decision and explaining that. And the anxiety is more anxiety than really a reality.
And let me just add, and that charge is also decreasing. So you will have charges that will be more and more efficient. You will be able in the future to charge faster, I don't know, 80 or even 100% of your battery. So you have to let things evolve naturally. And I think that eventually you will have less petrol stations and have more electric stations, but it's not from night to day that you stop having combustion vehicles and skip and change everything to vehicles. So there's a natural path to go.
You foresee technology change, an important technology change for vehicles?
For vehicles, so inside the vehicle, yes. I think there will be major changes in the future, especially around. So technology is much more accessible, especially on the electronics. It's much cheaper, and then connectivity. So we have the example of the smartphone. So in 10 years' time, it's completely changed the way we live, the way we do business, and the way we move around as well. So, and this has also came into the vehicles itself. So people now value a lot the connectivity. So when you start asking younger people what they value most in a car, they are now starting to value a lot connectivity, okay, instead of,
it's fancy, it's fast, lots of horsepower. Now they value a lot the connectivity that the car gives you. And this changes because now car manufacturers need to be aware that if my smartphone does not connect automatically to my car, it will be a down point. And this will impact my sales. Okay? So I think this is an opinion. So I'm not standing on the car side, so on the onboard part, but this is how I see the industry evolving. So the market that we want to address and the mentality of people is changing a lot. Gonçalo also mentioned, so nowadays the first goal when young people leave the university is not buying a car. And this changed in the last decade. Previous generation, the first thing they wanted to do, their first goal in life after taking a degree would be, I want to get my driver's license and buy my own car. And this changed completely.
Actually, can I use one? I have a question, because in some of these events with an older audience, I typically say that to explain this, that millennials tentatively today, they prefer to have 1 month vacations or traveling in Asia or in Thailand or Latin America, rather than, and don't owning a car for the other 11 months, rather than having just a car for the 12 months and not traveling. But I would like support for this claim. So I would ask you, what would you prefer? So traveling 1 month every year, whatever you want, and not owning a car and using shared mobility on the another 11 months, or owning a car for 12 months? The first one, option one, the traveling. And owning a car for 12 months and not traveling. Yeah, okay, so I'm supported, I think, in this claim, because I didn't have any evidence, but I think it's interesting, because when I think I got my driver's license on the day of my birthday, of my 18th birthday, or something like this. And this is really curious and shows how things are changing.
This is mechanical engineering, so
Yeah,
I would
exactly.
say that there should be a passion for cars. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for your amazing insights, and I really love this panel. So forget my shirt, but I really love this panel. My question will be for the players on the mobility, so Luísa and Joana, and giving the new transportation pass here in the area of Lisbon. What do you foresee for your business? Do you foresee any change given the transportation pass, so the unique pass for Lisbon? How do you see your position in the market regarding this new upcoming thing from Lisbon?
That's a good question, actually. But as I was saying, we are not. What we really want is to be a complement to public transportation. For now, Drive Now only works in Lisbon. So our main Drive Now area is in Lisbon. So at least for now, we don't see that will be a problem for us, because as I was saying, for example, you can come from Cascais to Lisbon by train, but then by the lunchtime you need a car to go shopping or to go to a doctor's appointment or something like that. Then you grab a car and you go and you leave it there, and then you come with a high scooter, sorry, I'm forgetting the name. So this is the reality of shared mobility. So we don't want to face the public transportation or to be a competitor to the public transportation. We just want to complement it, yes.
Again, I totally agree with you. We are e-scooters, and I will talk about what I know. E-scooters are a complement to everything, to your daily life. So you live 15 minutes away from your subway, from the nearest subway. Instead of walking, you take a scooter, you take 5 minutes to get there. I don't know. Or the Drive Now car is too far away from you. Then you take a scooter from the Drive Now car.
Already did that.
Exactly. So we are not competing with public transportation. On the contrary, we believe that this is a change that it should be done to every side of mobility. This is what we are aiming here, to change the way people see mobility.
just to add, in the future, maybe we can have a combined ticket, which is car sharing and all mobile or another sharing mobilities way and public transportation. Maybe in the future we have this pricing model, which combines everything. So, I think that will take a bit long to
Maybe
change.
not. Maybe not.
change.
Changes are so quick, and
Yeah.
that would be the goal actually, like to consider e-scooter part of the public transportation.
Yeah.
The way I see that cities can change is inside the cities. I cannot see how would it be to the relation between, I don't know, Mafra or Lisbon or people living in further city. Yeah. But what I think is that we came to this point that cities are built for cars. Okay, we have smaller sidewalks. Sometimes we cannot walk there. Sometimes two people cannot walk in the same sidewalk. But we have a road for the car, and this happens everywhere. So I think with new mobility transportation, with new mobility forms, or with new mobility mediums, we will be able to have the city for the people, with wider side paths and not so polluted and less noise and etc.
This will make cities more concentrated or larger and spread to a bigger region.
Cities between them, or
The city itself will be more concentrated. Population will live in a smaller area, or will live it more far apart.
I don't know if that will contribute, but because nowadays people move to other places because they need to get there by car or because they don't have another way of transportation. If we eliminate this problem, and if transportation is equal and available for everyone, then I believe there will be there won't be no more this sense of, oh, I need to live here because I'm closer to the work. Because you will take the same time. Public transportation will be improved. You will be quicker because you don't have the the roads filled with cars and traffic jam and etc. So less cars, more public transportation, more alternatives, more bikes, more e-scooters. I think this will extinguish that problem of distances, no?
First of all, hi everyone. Thank you for the presentation. I'm asking this to Joana because you talked about, I mean, the solutions for the iScooters, bicycles are very good in the city itself for short distances. But for example, at the Central Lisbon train route, it's an example because I do that route, as it is today, as it is today, it's at the rush hour, it's really awful, really uncomfortable. The trains are massively full, and even the subway. If we want more people to join public transportation, and train and subway is basically the only ones at higher distances, how do you, in your opinion, what would be a solution for that? Because it would be even worse. It would be unbearable, actually.
What would be unbearable?
The capacity of the trains, the subways are already kind of small for the amount of people that.
So more trains.
Yeah, but personally, I don't think it's a problem of frequency of trains, because I think at for example, rush hour are from 10 to 10 minutes, and it's, well, if we decrease that frequency, we start to have a logistical problem. So
what if we think a little bit further from now? And what if we think that, I don't know, in 2 years, the majority of cities have e-scooters or bikes, etc. And then we see that more and more people are using bikes and taking bikes from Sintra to Lisbon to use them in Lisbon. And then imagine that trains or the public transportation has to adapt, like we all are doing here, and has to create a compartment or something to put just scooters and bikes while people sit elsewhere. I don't know. I think it's a good question, but that's the kind of question that changes things.
Yeah, I wanted exactly an opinion. I didn't want.
Yeah. I hope that happens, and I hope people can bring the e-scooter from Sintra to Lisbon, and have them on the train, and then they leave the train. And
Thank you.
But I think that that's a problem, that not just a mobility problem, because you have this. All of the main companies are in Lisbon. Now they are shifting for, I don't know, Tagus Park or Lagoas Park, because we have a high concentration of people in Lisbon. But maybe for Hive it's a good, and also for Drive Now it's a good challenge to reinforce the area, the operation area in those alternative hubs of companies. And just to, for example, because one of the problems that you came from Sintra, then you don't have a train station nearby Tagus Park, for example. Maybe you can have his scooter there, so you can do that last mile, or maybe you can have a Drive Now near the station to go from the station to these alternative hubs. No, just like that.
I probably counted around 7 different brands of e-scooters. Now that Uber just launched Jump, which is another bike app. I wanted to ask if you think this amount of different brands, different options are good for mobility, or should we be focusing on different types, something else besides scooters and bikes?
It's part of having a liberal economy, right? So as long as you can work, operate, as long as the city accepts it, then I believe it is good, because if you have competition, then you improve yourself, then you improve your business, you improve your operation, you take more good care of your clients, etc. So it's good for mobility, it's good for the clients that we have this kind of competition. For me, it's not good. I would prefer less competition, but
Hi. I came a bit late to watch the debate. However, we're talking about here private mobility, consumers, customers who are using for their own benefit. However, I believe there's another problem inside the logistics of a city, mobility, which is the delivery of goods and the distribution of goods. So I'm wondering, and I would like to know your general opinion, what do you think will be the next steps in that kind of mobility, distribution of goods sector?
anyone particular?
Yeah, that's another parallel disruptive business which we see a lot of. It's based on e-commerce, so online commerce, which also change the way people do regular business and how they buy their goods, and everyone now values that the good will be delivered to our home. So logistics depends a lot on how they will do their mobility, or they bring their goods to the consumer. And in that case, so all of these technologies are naturally applicable, even bicycles and kick scooters, to the last mile delivery. And there is also a trend around drones to perform some of the delivers. So the delivers being made through the air, almost, or sometimes even all the time, right directly to the end user. Okay, so this type of delivery, I think, will gain more weight. So I was not very into the drones business, but it's actually growing, and it has a huge growth in the last years as well. But I think it can be disruptive also to the e-commerce. So we've been talking about mobility on ground. Okay, so either cars or public transport or bicycles or kick scooters, but we should not forget that there are types of goods that can be transported through the air. Okay, and this is a personal opinion, but I think that it will play a role. And I was not aware, but you mentioned traffic analytics, so we've developed a solution for monitoring traffic using drones, collecting video. Okay, then we've applied some analytics, but I came in contact with this drone business, and a lot of things is being done. So legislation, which is of course very important. If you want to have drones flying in your city, you need to legislate, and also the technology as an enabler. So I was not aware, but for example, the drones have embedded software and firmware that does not allow the drone to start a flight if in that area you cannot fly it. And this is embedded on the drone. So if you buy a drone on the market and you want to fly it in a prohibited area, the drone will not fly it. So the industry is also taking important steps, and this is just to add something different from what we've been discussing. But I think that drones might play an important role into delivers, and not only to your homes, but also to your cars. Okay, so I've seen some cool trials with autonomous cars, and also while the vehicle is driving, it's receiving its order directly into the vehicle while it's heading home and stuck in traffic. Okay, and you have your good being delivered to your car, and when you reach your home, there you go. So I've arrived home, I have my good. It can be my dinner, it can be a smartphone I just ordered online, and there are actually use cases tested and trialed out, which is pretty cool. And it's not my regular business, but as a technology lover, I think it will play an important role. Just to add something.
Afonso studied engineering like you, and I need to ask you a personal question. Did the training in engineering give you an edge in the mobility business? Is it useful, or you think you should have studied other things like sociology, history, economy, whatever?
No, I believe it's definitely useful. Also because I always wanted to be an engineer, so it was a no-brainer. I didn't have those tests when you want to define what you want to do in your life. So since I was a little kid, I wanted to be an engineer. I just didn't know if I wanted to be an electrical, a mechanical. I didn't know, or informatics. I chose to be an electrical engineer. And if it's relevant from my activity, definitely. So I work in a company, an engineering company. Okay, so the majority of the employees are still engineers, and it has a big presence in electrification. So chosen electrical engineer for sure gave me abilities that I now use, and knowledge that I now use on my daily activities. But of course, I changed a lot. I started on hydroelectric power plants, so in EDP, in the production part, and then I moved to the mobility business with the same degree. So I haven't done any other degree, and I had to learn and to be in contact with the market. And nowadays,